Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in this world. God bless you. This is Gloria White coming to you from Utah, USA. Now, we all saw what was happening in Canada thanks to YouTube media reporters that were there on the scene. We got to see both sides of what was happening, what the mainstream was parroting according to the government wishes. And mind you, that their media is paid for and receive huge amounts of money from the government to produce their content, while YouTube creators depend on their clicks and their likes and their advertising to receive income. And many of those that were reporting were not even monetized, but they were concerned with the ability to give to the Canadians the on-scene coverage that Canadians could use to decide for themselves what was truth and what was fiction. So now we know that our president, Joseph Biden Jr., was instrumental in directing Justin Trudeau in how to treat the peaceful legal protesters in Canada. And we know that we just saw our president, Joseph Biden Jr., produce an extension in the national emergency here in America. The emergency declaration has been extended under COVID. While we see COVID numbers drop and we see countries around the world no longer trying to mandate vaccines and going back to normal to learn to live with this COVID like we did and do with the flu. So now, what I want to bring your attention to is I want you to keep your eyes on what's happening with our people's freedom convoy that is on its way to the outskirts of Washington, D.C., where the National Guard are already set up and waiting to greet these people. And I want you to notice how they're going to be treated. Because are they going to be following the same protocol that Justin Trudeau used to bring a halt to the freedom speech and to the right to petition the government? And now I know that that has pretty much dropped off of everyone's radar of what's going on in Canada. I want to offer to you a video that I will put the link to in my description box that is now discussing in Canada in their parliament what content should be allowed on social media, and trying to give the power to what's called the CRTV to decide what should be allowed and what should not be allowed, and that these legislatures there in Canada, they're discussing who would have control of deciding this content. What would be the rules, and they're not being clearly defined as to what would be considered allowed and what would be disallowed as far as producing content on YouTube and so forth and so on. And what will happen here? Will our government decide that they should have the power, or one small group should have the power to decide what we can and cannot see? Because already here in our social media, we have seen censorship under what they consider medical misinformation. They have their foot in the door. Where will they go from here? Will they push all the way into the door is wide open to them to censor all content on social media? How will Americans have conversations with differing opinions if only one opinion is allowed, and that opinion would be decided by a very small group of people as to what is American and what isn't American, and what is acceptable under the government rather than under freedom of speech? Our ability to decide for ourselves could possibly be taken away, as it would be here in Canada if their bill is allowed to pass. Then they will become more like communist China than free America, or America as it is free now. So we need to pay close attention to this. And if we see that our government is trying to head in that direction, we need to cut it off at the root, which we've already experienced for 2 years. The censorship of social media based on what they call medical misinformation to be removed or blocked or censored, or YouTube creators receiving strikes and their channels being discontinued for a week. And if you get a second strike, for 2 weeks. And then if you get the third strike, they will remove you from YouTube. And all of this is under the guise of medical misinformation, of disagreeing with what the government is saying. That is not a free society. That is moving toward a totalitarian society where the government tells the people what to listen to and how they are to think. And they're not going to be allowed to have differing opinions than what the government holds. So listen to the video. I know it's one of those things that's like, do I really have to listen to this? But if you really want to know what to keep your eyes open and your ears open to in order to not allow them to do what they're doing in Canada. So now where everyone was producing YouTube videos showing the actual things that were happening at the protest compared to what the mainstream media was saying was happening at the protest. And those that were reporting the actual events would be censored and not allowed. And only what the government's message would be allowed. This, my friend, is communism in China. The people have a social credit score. So if they listen to certain things, or they spend too long on their videos, or if they go to the store what they're allowed to spend, this is trying to come to America, and we need to stop it before it gets any further than what we've already been dealing with YouTube and social media, banning platforms, blocking people permanently from speaking their mind on a social media platform such as President Trump or anyone else who disagrees with the government's idea of what should be allowed. And as always, guys, I love you.